really hope that everyone is available and ready to talk UFOs this evening. We should be, because we went through this intro once already when we were not set to public. So if you guys weren't ready before, you've got no fucking excuse not to be ready now. The revelations, by the way, did we solve the UFO mystery in the first 5 minutes when people weren't able to access the show?
We did, actually. All the secrets in the universe unlocked.
I thought there
42
was 5 moments of utter brilliance. I know at one point Rob lost consciousness.
Yes.
That was the best 5 minutes in Parafactor history, in our long storied history dating back to 2007 when we began this thing. That was, I say, the best 5 minutes of internet radio / podcasting.
I almost feel like we can quit the show now.
Yeah, we might as well just give up, because we're not topping that.
After those fateful 5 minutes. Like, why in the world are we even attempting to broadcast after that benchmark?
We'll never hit that kind of plateau again with this show.
The bar wasn't just raised. It was put into fucking orbit.
Which is where the topic of tonight's episode typically exists.
Yeah, we're up there with one of Elon Musk's old Teslas and his ego. All the way through the stratosphere. Looking down at us little poor
Jeff
people.
Bezos' bank account.
And by the way, like, I had this conversation earlier. Like, does anyone feel that, like, Elon Musk went from being like Kevin Costner in Field of Dreams, Build It and They Will Come, to fast forward 4 years later, and now he's Lex Luthor? Does anybody sort of feel like he's went through that transition? Like, he used to be like we're going to do a private space program. We're going to, provide something that isn't government controlled. And now he's sort of like, we've found a way to channel the middle class's money directly into fuel for our payload. I feel like does anybody else feel like he made the switch already?
I don't think so. I still think the guy's a bit of a superhero.
You still think he's a superhero?
Yeah.
See, now, you started with the Kevin Costner Field of Dreams, and I was kind of hoping you were going to go to the Kevin Costner Waterworld. Like, he's kind of like that. Like, he's just gone so far off the deep end that it's, whole contrived, just terrible, terrible future vision.
I think the problem I have with talking too much Waterworld is I'm a bit of a fetishist when it comes to neck gills. And if I have to get up at any point during that conversation to use the bathroom, it's going to be way too telling. Even for an Irishman such as myself. I do have skinny jeans on. So we've got 3 great cases tonight. I think each of us went in some interesting directions, at least from... We're almost sort of, unraveling a mystery as a mystery to each other tonight, because we don't have a lot of information about what we're doing, right? I mean, all of us have a direction, but unlike the last show when we were pretty specific what we're talking about, this one's a little bit different. I mean,
freeform,
right? Yeah, it's a little more freeform. So before we get into some of that, one thing that we had talked about in, my God, that first 5 minutes is
there's Emmys on the way. It just popped across my screen. First 5 minutes, Emmy.
Right, yeah. I mean, I didn't think they offered Pulitzers for podcasting, but I mean, the news that I'm getting. So,
Grammy for Best Original Content as well.
The great thing is I think we can sweep this. We just got to keep her playing
right under the rug.
That 5-minute bit over and over and over again, and we should be just fine. So we're gonna.
What was it? The EGOT? I think we got in that first 5 minutes the Emmy, Grammy, Oscar, and Tony. The EGOT.
Yeah, and I didn't even realize that they were able to deliver them that quickly. So, kick ass for drones, right? Awesome stuff.
They can fly at night now.
Right. I mean, unfortunately, I think one of them landed on the delicate membrane of my roof. So now I'm going to have to go out there. And it's really windy, like where I'm at. Like, even though we have some windbreak from like a couple tree lines, like I'm out in the middle of nowhere. So the wind just violates us constantly.
So you literally are like in the Outlook Hotel in the winter.
Oh, we are remote. Like we are out here. Like essentially, if you guys could see my view, so I've got for once I've actually got a studio that's not in a basement. Right.
Your mom is pleased.
Not by design. Yeah, I mean,
out of her
they're
basement.
still upstairs. I just moved up a level. So I've got this nice window right by my desk, and it's we've got a rather large yard. We actually have a picket fence, believe it or not. Past the picket fence is this little road, and then
sold out, Mark.
Yeah.
We have a field, and then we have a tree line. Okay, so I know that there's a grouping of trees past the tree line. So it's not just a tree line, so it's not just a windbreak for the cornfield. It's an actual tree line with a small grouping of trees in there. And there's a small, tiny little body of water. It's called a lake if you look at the map, but I'm pretty sure it's more just a pond. And that's where a lot of the animals and woodland creatures congregate. So there's a lot of coyotes that run past our house.
Do you love those coyotes? I think this is the third consecutive episode that you have mentioned. Or no, actually, you were the first episode. You were still in the old place.
Yes.
Last episode, you mentioned the coyotes as well.
Well, you get to hear them like bark, right? So it's not just the howl. Like you get to actually hear them bark. So, when you're outside and you're looking around for, I mean, essentially we're in the middle of like abduction central here.
Yeah. Now, see, you hear the coyotes and you think that's awesome, whereas I see them and I'm kind of terrified of them. The last place I lived, it was not unusual to see them just out walking around where you lived, like walking down the street looking for food.
Mm-hmm.
And I have a tiny dog, and that is one of their main sources of meals. So I was always scared that one of these days I was going to take my dog out for a walk and a coyote was going to just come up and snatch her off the leash. Because these coyotes were not scared of people. Like there was one person there, they chased a lady and she had to jump on the top of her car to get away from this thing.
I just want to see the food pyramid poster for the coyotes meal plan. We've got Shih Tzus, we've got Chihuahuas, we've got miniature pinschers, we've got pugs.
Well, here's a story from the past, or my past. I worked animal control. I don't know if you guys knew that or not, but I worked animal control.
I did not know that.
I did not either.
And we used to have a tape recording of kittens, just kittens making, kitten noises. And if you wanted to draw coyotes in, you just played that tape recording of kittens, and they would come from every direction to find out where those noises were coming from.
That is disturbing.
Right?
Like, that is the bait. That's horrible.
Out
of everything on the planet, the most savory morsel, kittens.
Meow. Meow.
It was the weirdest thing. We had a like a waterproof boom box, for lack of a better term, and this tape that my boss made of a box of kittens just making kitten noises. And we'd take it out, we'd push the play button, back off about 50 yards, and within 10 minutes they'd come from all directions to find out where the noise was coming from.
I mean, all you got to do is just break out some kitten, spread it on a quarter loaf, set it outside, a few traps. Well, now that we've alienated, I believe, probably one complete gender of our audience, as if any of them were showing up anyways. So we've got guests coming up, and And we can get excited about it again. We talked about that during the Fateful Five. That's what we're going to call it now, is the Fateful Five.
The Fateful Five.
That's when George Lucas was on in that first 5 minutes and told us who the guests were going to be, right?
Yeah,
Well,
we had
not only
Luke,
that, but then he detailed what they brought him back for at Disney, which I was a pants shitting moment for me.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna spoil the fun. It was George Lucas and Steven Spielberg Speedo mud wrestling.
You weren't supposed to tell anybody, Mark. That's supposed to be like.
I know. I couldn't hold back on the surprise. The audience needs to know.
And now you've alienated every member of the Jewish Athletic League too. Good job, Mark. With that tall tale. So we have some great guests coming up. January 7th, January 14th. You'll definitely want to tune in. January 7th is a cult detective, Bob Freeman. Bob is a great guy. He's got some fantastic stories. He's a great author. He's actually a really good artist too. He just did some concept work for a filmmaker, Gregory Lambertson, who I'm very familiar with. And Lambertson is actually from the New York area too. So, and I didn't even realize that they were friends because I knew Gregory Lambertson, who did a movie called Widow's Point with Craig Sheffer of Nightbreed fame. I'm a big Nightbreed fan. So, Greg, let me see a sneak preview of the film a while back, and I had no idea that he and Bob were friends. And then Greg was showing some conceptual work, some art, and I'm like, oh, well, that's Bob, who's coming on the show on the 7th. So Bob will be on the show the 7th of January, and then the following week, and this time I'm really, really looking forward to this. And by the way, if anybody wants to see the calendar, they can go to parafactorradio.com. And you'll see we've got an upcoming shows button. It's that easy. Shows, upcoming shows. And we've got about the first 4 lined up on the homepage as well. Real easy to get to any information on the website too. We are going to be talking with UFO experiencer and Devil's Den author Terry Lovelace. And
Cannot wait.
Really interesting stuff. This is one of the more... I think probably one of the more thoroughly documented cases of actual implants being found and removed. So Terry will be talking about that. Really, really interesting stuff. Can't wait to hear it. And I can't wait to hear what you guys have for me tonight for our 3 cases. Of course, I'm giving everybody a preview of sort of what mine is, because most of the images are from Mike because I uploaded them earlier. So who wants to go first tonight? Who went first last time? Was it Mark?
I went first last time, so let's put Rob in the driver's seat first.
All right, Rob, what have you got for us tonight?
Well, what I've got is it's both historical and relatively current. And I live about a half a mile from the shores of Lake Ontario, just outside of Rochester, New York. And Lake Ontario has long been, this mythical place for the peoples that settled here, the Aboriginal people of Western New York, the Native American tribe, the Six Nations. And many of their tales go back to things that happened, around and on Lake Ontario. And there's so many weird things that happen here, so many different things. There's magnetic waypoints in the middle of the lake where you'll be on a boat and your compass will just start spinning like a record because of what's going on underneath the surface of the water down at the base. There are shipwrecks everywhere. It's an amazing location to just kind of research the history of. And one of the stories goes back to people on the northern edge of Lake Ontario in southern Ontario, Toronto, to Hamilton, all the way down to where the Niagara Falls area is on that end of Lake Ontario. They have constantly been noting over the years lights appearing out over the water. Now, they would be facing east at night, and they would say that these lights were the gumming, and they would see these lights hover out over the water. Flash forward to 2014. People in the city of Toronto, and as far south, or we would be south east of Toronto, western edges of the Rochester area, we're seeing 3 triangle-shaped objects floating over the lake, just off the shore, just outside of Toronto. And it was 2014. There was supposedly video of it that was put up, but the video was immediately taken down. Every time it's been tried to be put back up, it's taken down again. I have tried to do as much research on this as I could, and it you get as far as, yep, people saw these 3 triangles over the lake, and it stops.
Now, have you personally seen the video before it was taken down?
Yes, I did. It's 3 white triangular-shaped objects. Each triangle is marked with white lights at the peak and red lights at the rear. So there's 1 red light or 1 white light, 2 red lights. And there are 3 of them, and they glow a whitish color. And there has been no explanation given, nothing. There have been a million. One of my favorite ones was, it was party lanterns. So, yes, it was party lanterns flying in perfect triangular shape. But it's so strange to me because we are at an age, like, and this is where my story kind of takes that turn, is, I'm half a mile from the lake. I see there are lights that happen out over that lake all the time. And they constantly, like the 2017 here in Rochester, the city I live in, there were lights seen out over the lake. And within 20 minutes, the news reports, no, it was nothing. It was nothing at all. It was military aircraft. It was a helicopter. They just blow it off. This sighting over Toronto, it's like on complete lockdown.
Now,
Mike,
I got a question for you, Rob, because this is something I've never really picked your brain about, and we'll get back to the story. But when you're over a larger body of water like that, I mean, what is, do you know, the deepest depth of Lake Ontario?
690 feet.
690 feet.
In
your own estimation, how difficult or unlikely would it be that there is some kind of small structure somewhere in the lake?
Oh, there definitely. There's definitely test facilities and things like that have been put into the lake. One of the other local lakes in the area here, in the Finger Lakes, there's a site in Dresden, New York, that is on one of the Finger Lakes that goes down a little over 600 feet. And because the lake is so narrow and so long, the top surface of the water does not get all that crazy choppy. Mm-hmm. And they use it for testing submersibles and things like that for the States Navy. It's an underwater testing site. Huh. And they use one of the Finger Lakes as an underwater testing site for the United States Navy.
So that leads to my question is, you said after this happened that the lake was pretty much on lockdown. Now, who was behind the lockdown? Was it the military, just the local authorities?
It wasn't the lake. It was the information that was coming out. As soon as the information would come out, they would block it or it was nothing. It was a helicopter. It was a weather balloon. The
weather balloon, yeah, classic.
Yeah, it was swamp gas refracting off of mercury, but in all honesty, like when I tried to research this story, I told you guys, this is what I wanted to do. I wanted to dig into this. There's nothing. It just stops.
Huh.
Now, are there any ancillary stories about people who have attempted to research it? Because sometimes that is a rabbit hole that we do get down, is when we attempt to research something where there's not a lot of data on the actual research, you do end up finding a community of people who are also attempting to find information. Did you find anything along those veins?
I did. I found a chat group, and I tried to get, tried to reach out to the chat group, did not get any response. Again, this happened in 2014, so I don't know if they're still, around, if it's still, active or not. But there was a lot of, different theories that were thrown out there, that the reason that it was shut down so quickly was because of the location of where the lights were seen, just, outside of Toronto, at a time when, there was a lot of things going on between the Canadian-American border, a lot of different things happening up there.
Mark, were you laughing at my insanely huge bottle of tea?
I was actually, and but not because of the insanely huge bottle, but because at first I thought it was an insanely huge bottle of whiskey. I was like,
I
"That's
would
my
have had
boy."
far more street cred if that would have been the case. Not that I couldn't put a black label on here.
Right?
To the best of your knowledge, this is a coffee cup.
Right. Yeah, I
Just
have.
blow on it from time to time to make it more
Yeah,
convincing.
let's just stop Rob's story dead in the middle here. Yeah, so I'm like 3 weeks without like traditional caffeine, like caffeinated drinks, sports drinks, stuff like that. So this is like my one guilty pleasure now is sweet tea instead of
Yeah,
unsweetened tea. So yeah,
I'm almost a year into the cutting out of
cutting out of your
everyone here and
audio.
there. Then what's that?
Almost a year into the cutting out of your audio. Because that's
Yeah,
exactly
that
what happened.
too.
Like most of
But
the year of cutting out. Nope, you are. You're cutting out right now. In
yeah,
fact.
Right now,
cutting out soda.
Oh yeah, that's a big one, right?
Yeah.
I mean, was it a difficult thing for you? Because it's always a difficult thing for me.
See, I didn't. It wasn't really that difficult for me
No,
this
fuck you.
time. I had done it in the past, and like it was probably about 7 or 8 years ago. I did it for a couple of years, and then like when I had a Coke after this long period of time, all I tasted was just chemicals. It didn't taste like soda. It just tasted like a mix of weird chemicals, and I was like, ugh.
Oh yeah,
So
yeah. I had a dentist appointment, like, because people really want to hear about this. I had a dentist
right.
appointment like yesterday, or the day before, and it was not early. But it was sort of like brunchish. It was like around at 11, right? And I didn't have anything to eat, and I was just up late the night before, and decided, you know what, I haven't had one of these energy drinks for a while, but I don't like when I fall asleep in the dentist chair. So,
You
well,
don't
the
know what they're
last
gonna
time
do
that
to you.
happened, you woke up with your pants undone.
right, exactly. Yeah, the good thing is I paid my utility bills in singles. Um, but yeah, it was like, and I bought a Monster, which was sort of like my poison of choice, right? And I got
Right.
about a quarter of the way through it, and just a blaring caffeine headache. So
Oh yeah.
yeah, so I know that for the time being, I won't be going back to those anytime soon. So obviously, information control, Rob, is a huge thing with anything coming out. Um, how frequently are people seeing lights in that area? I mean, you're saying you're seeing all the
Well,
time. Like what is the frequency?
um, let's see. In going back and trying to look at it, there was 2011, 2014, 2017, and then this year. So it's every 3 years.
Interesting. So, is there a possibility? And let's just go ahead and exhaust this idea of underwater structures. Do you think there's a possibility that there's something that's not U.S. made, not Canadian made? What do we want to call it? Some kind of a port? Do you think there's something there that these things could be visiting, something of some significance? I mean, it seems to be when we have a lot of these water sightings that's sort of the organic way that the conversation goes forward is if they're above the water, if they're above specific parts of the water, there's got to be some kind of interest there. If there's some kind of interest there, that interest has got to be something that has some kind of longevity. If it has some kind of longevity, is it an artificial structure?
I am not. All right, you guys know that I am not like the typical UFO. You know, I believe that there is life outside of what we know here on our planet. Absolutely, there is life. Has it visited our planet? I don't know. I'd like to think that that the aliens would have something better to do than come and check in on us, but maybe not. Maybe this could be their keeping up with the Kardashians. This could be like their
reality television. I mean, that's my vote is
Oh,
right
yeah.
there. It's been that.
They touched on that in South Park, where they were talking about how like every different species on the planet is from a different planet because every planet only has one species on it, and they gathered a bunch of different species and put them on Earth to see how they survive together, and that's the reality show.
Perfect.
If there's a planet that is singularly the horse's ass of the universe, I mean, we're competitive, undoubtedly.
Well, everybody knows that that's Uranus.
I mean, I knew somebody was going to go there. And the ballot was in early that it was going to be Mark.
But so, do I believe that, there's something under the water? I don't know. I don't know. Why is there such an information shutdown on this? Why is it that, when you go back in history and you look at some of the biggest, UFO sightings and biggest UFO touches, Winters from Air Force Base, all kinds of cover up for years and years. Why? If it was nothing, it was nothing. Why do you have to cover up nothing? And that's what I'm trying to understand here.
And I think that's one of the bigger questions has always been, why the cover up? And for decades, and this was, pre-internet, not only pre-internet, but I think like global descent, when people were still regularly going to church and believing that their government had their best intentions, at heart, is that
the government doesn't have my best intentions.
I knew this bomb was going to drop sooner or later. Not
Sorry,
only did we have a first 5 minutes where we let the cat out of the bag of what exactly UFOs were here for, but now we've done another one.
Rob's soul has been destroyed. Look at that look on his face. That's crushed. I mean, he doesn't know how to handle this. I mean, should we tell him about the Tooth Fairy?
All I'm gonna say is at this point, there's gonna be
What about the Tooth Fairy? That was a great movie.
There's gonna be 2 audio recordings that's gonna play to lure in predators. One is small cats mewing, and the second is Rob's will breaking. Both equally despondent, both equally disturbing. So I think that, but that's the bigger question. The bigger question is why, and for the longest time, the answer was always, mass hysteria, that we couldn't handle it. It would be a breakdown on a social level. It would be a breakdown socio-politically. From a religious perspective, we weren't ready or capable of reconciling our own beliefs with this bigger picture belief of aliens existing, of other civilizations existing. So that it was that way for a while. But I think where we are now, and again, it's like, sort of like global descent. I mean, for the most part, aren't we all a little defeated across the entire planet? That when we hear news that this is a startling revelation that, the Israeli prime minister says that he definitely has information that not only we've been visited, but that there's been pacts made between the U.S. government and these alien entities, that we all just sort of sit there and are like, eh.
It sort of explains Betsy DeVos a little better.
It's not going to get my Rona stimulus any quicker, I know that. I mean, that's sort of
So
like where
here's
we're
my
at. You know,
theory,
I mean,
though.
we're
Here's my theory on the lockdown information. People are busy trying to get this information over here, whereas the real thing that they don't want people looking at is this up here.
well, and that
So it's
was,
all like a distraction. It's like an illusion.
and that was in Philip
Yeah.
Corso's foreword. If you've never read the Day After Roswell, that was Philip Corso's big book when he talked about he was heading up this Department of Foreign Technologies, and the foreword for that book is brilliant, not in what he says because we're all sort of aware of it, but the fact that he was able to break it down in layman's terms and say, listen, what we're really doing in the government is we're building 1,000 sheds a day. And what we do is we put a tiny piece of information in one shed that you can find after you investigate and spend a lot of time on it. So you find that shed with that one piece of information in it that actually is a clue to the next shed that we've built. Now, we build those sheds very quickly. We have all the information, we have the resources. So by the time you get to the second or third shed, you're looking at news that's 45, 50 years old. So it was, it's an interesting combination of not only the fact that we really don't know what will happen if we find out, first of all, that there's an intelligence that has better resources than we do, right? I mean, it's something that's more of a commodity than what we're able to mine here on this planet, so if they're sticking a straw,
Like if they have that, blue goop from Alien Nation.
yeah,
Remember that?
right? And they're all walking around with their genitals in
With
their
San
armpits
Francisco.
too.
Right.
Right.
No, no.
The weird
Right.
spots
I
on their
mean,
heads.
deodorant companies out of business. How do we do this now? People lose jobs. That's what I'm saying. People lose jobs. But yeah, it's definitely a weird scenario because we do have to take a look at, our ideals obviously are extremely ethnocentric. What happens when an entire planet, just not another landmass, not something that we're unaware of. We have problems going to a different state. We have problems going to a different town, to a different church, to a different organization, to a different workplace because of all of these different, sort of microcultures. What happens when you take an entire different planet and bring it into the mix? It's a big question. I mean, do I think that we as the human race can handle it? We can't handle anything. I mean, that's when it comes down to it, we can't. But it would
Come on, we're handling COVID just fine.
Case in point. Like, we can't handle anything. I mean, I don't think it would be panic. I don't think it would be hysteria because I think we're also too jaded and self-obsessed to really go nuts over anything like that. It would be if somebody told us, hey, listen, you're going to get advanced technologies. You're going to have a better quality of life because they're going to eradicate certain diseases. We're going to, all these great things can happen, but somebody's going to say, but listen, the only thing that we have to sacrifice is the current recipe for Klondike bars. And we would go batshit fucking crazy.
Right.
We would.
Listen, you guys, we cannot be giving up them Klondike bars just because they're going to cure cancer. It's nothing.
Especially the
We're
Heath
going to
ones.
figure out how to cure cancer in the next, 75 to 100 years. We don't need their cures. I mean, Klondike bars, think about it. They got the crunchy stuff sometimes it's chocolate ice cream. You don't know. You don't want to give that away.
We're going to have some 90-year-old fucking codger heading up the GOP is going to be like, here's what you don't want to sacrifice. Klondike bars. And then everything just breaks down. We've got absolutely nothing left.
Still love the one. And I was standing over the body, covered in blood after the sacrifice. And then I turned and I said, that's what I would do for a Klondike bar.
See, we can't handle it. We'd lose our shit.
Right. It's too much.
And it could
Too
be
much.
something so insignificant, It's like, we're going to give you a new fuel
straight
system.
line between the three colors of ice cream inside the Klondike bar?
Oh, we couldn't give up Neapolitan ice cream. If at some point we said we will eradicate world hunger, here's the thing though, Neapolitan, you're going to get slightly less chocolate. Fires in the streets, overturned fucking cars.
Reality
You know
TV stars for presidents.
It's funny because it's true. It would. You'd be like, another bombing took place today. Apparently, the Chocolate Brigade, they are calling themselves now, a terrorist organization that apparently is not happy with their current third. That's exactly what it would be horrible.
32 percenters.
It'd be the third person. Yeah, yeah. People be walking around.
Meanwhile,
with
the
33
strawberry
tattoos
soldiers
on themselves.
are getting an extra percent.
32 percenters.
That's our gang symbol right there. This is exactly what would happen. Oh. Now that I've voiced my opinion on how I have absolutely no faith in the human race. Mark, what was your story for tonight?
All right. So here it is. It's November 7th, 2006. Cold day in Chicago. All of a sudden, you're at the United Terminal C-17, and you look up in the sky, and there's just this round thing floating above the airport, just hovering. I was saying that there was almost like a camouflage technology that was like changing colors. Now, the thing they were saying was probably somewhere between 1,000 and 1,900 feet in the sky. So some of the sizes that were reported are a little off. It says between like 6 and 30 feet in diameter.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, various different people. There are people that were driving along the side, driving, by the airport, pulled over because they saw this thing in the sky and were standing on the side of the road watching it. The taxi mechanics saw this thing. There were a couple pilots in grounded planes that saw this thing, but who didn't see it. And this is the weird thing, was the air traffic controllers. They claimed they did not see it. But one of the things that I was reading about on that was that the way the air traffic controller booth is set up, the windows kind of go out. They can only see like at almost like a 30-degree angle up. If this was right above them, right above the air traffic control tower, you can't see anything because of the ceiling. So it may have been just out of sight for them to be able to see it. Now, unfortunately, because the air traffic controllers didn't see it, and there were some radio reports, I'll get to that, some radio communication, but because the air traffic controllers didn't see it, the FAA refused to investigate. Just outright refused. But the weird thing is, a lot of like the baggage handlers and the people who did see it down on the ground, there was all United. It was a United terminal mostly. United has forbidden its employees to talk about the lockdown information. They just outright forbade their employees to even discuss this.
Again, so why are they locking it down? Why are they hiding? Why are they stopping it? What's the big deal?
Yeah, there's no idea. But the weird thing, one of the weirdest parts of the story isn't just the fact that they saw it hovering above the airport. It hovered there for about a good 15 minutes and then shot straight up into the sky. Now, it was a fairly overcast day. And this thing, just due to the heat of whatever it was and the way it shot through the sky, punched a hole through the clouds, through like the cloud ceiling of the sky. And like they reported that the clouds went up to like 10,000 feet. So this is a hole in the sky that's 8,000 feet tall, from about 2,000 feet up to 10,000 feet. And there were people that were on the ground that saw the clear blue sky through this hole through the cloud. And
no one's allowed to talk about it.
No one's allowed to talk about it. And they're just saying it was like some sort of weird weather phenomenon, and nobody will investigate it.
Now, you and I have talked before. I know you're more into the UFO edge of things than I am. What do you think it was?
I think it may have very well been some sort of spacecraft. If not a far traveling one, think of it like the Star Wars craft. You got the X-wings that are like local travelers, and you got like the bigger stations that those dock into. This is probably like a smaller local traveling ship. not something that would cross a galaxy.
Like the one that Will Smith stole in Independence Day.
No, don't bring that movie up, please. Welcome to Earth. Ugh, garbage. But this is not the first recording.
How does that mark off?
It's not thing. I like the old DJ Jazzy Jeff and the Fresh Prince stuff. Like their first few albums were good, and like I even enjoyed I Am Legend, but it was just that movie for whatever reason. It's just and Jeff Goldblum and his mumbling incoherence. Oh, we got to do this, and then it connects to this, and then there's this, and then there's a virus. We'll give him a cold with a computer virus.
So estimate
anyway.
How many people? I mean, how many people came forward saying that they had seen this craft?
Somewhere probably between 15 to 20.
And,
actually came forward. But there was actually a Freedom of Information request to the airport about this, and somehow it made it through without like miles and miles of black marker to keep you high for years. It was an audio.
Either you end up getting stuff you didn't expect, or they end up slapping some kind of monetary value on it for research purposes, where you end up having to pay like $10,000, even though it's FOIA.
Yeah, but they actually got recordings of the radio chatter between the different between the pilots and the ground crew and the air traffic control tower. And you actually heard them say there is something hovering above the airport, and air traffic's like, we don't see it. And the guy was like, yeah, we saw it down here. And he's like, well, where are you working? And they're like, we're the taxi mechanics. So they were taxiing the plane in, and they saw it. And there were a couple pilots that said that they saw it as well. And that's what got me, is the pilots saying. I mean, they were on a grounded plane, but still they were able to see into the sky and actually see this thing.
And again, this raises bigger questions. One of the questions being, what would the purpose be for an advanced aircraft to be over a center of commerce and transportation for far inferior aircrafts, right? I mean, that's a big question. Like, what would the purpose be? Which almost leads me again to believe that maybe there was like a relations breakdown between some kind of deal they were working on, and they were like, listen, I know you guys have 5 more cases of moon pies to sweeten this shit up, and you're holding out. And we were like, no, man, we don't have any more moon pies. Seriously, we're like totally out of moon pies. And they're like, mini moon pies? And we're like, we don't have many moon pies either. And they're like, or I guess we could just fly over O'Hare for a little bit. How'd that be?
Yeah.
Maybe they've got moon pies at O'Hare. We know they've got vending machines. Why don't we just go to O'Hare and we'll fly over there for a little bit? See if they're... Doug, does O'Hare have any moon pies? Doug's over there now. And then we're like, just wait, call Doug. We can get you your moon pies. Just get Doug back. We'll get you your moon pies. It almost seems like it's just petty shit, right?
Now, I am not able to be on the computer tonight, so I can't research this quick while I'm talking to you guys about it. But I remember a story a few years back about there being some kind of hidden base or something under the Denver airport. Do you remember this?
Yeah,
story?
that's a whole different story.
But now wait a minute. Why is it a different story? Why isn't there something at O'Hare?
Now, show of hands, who has been to the Denver airport?
I was there briefly for a changeover.
Okay. So I spent some considerable time in Denver over the last, prior to meeting my wife, okay? The Denver airport, International Airport, is bizarre on so many different levels.
Oh, yeah. Lucifer.
Now, they chalk it up to, like a regional art movement and, the indigenous culture, but at no point in time did anyone really collectively get together and go, what if we had a hell horse out in front?
Lucifer.
I mean, guess what I saw a lot of in Colorado? Foxes. Saw some snakes. never saw a hell horse. So if an
Now,
animal of that culture were to greet me, have a nice little fox in front of that airport. Instead, they decided to go and pluck a creature from the Seven Circle and say, hey, how'd you like some supplemental income? Stand in front of the airport. It dropped the hell horse in front of the airport. And then you get to go and you see the murals, right?
Well, hang on. Before we get to the murals, a thing about that horse, and my friends Andy and Kate would really be upset if I did not mention this. The sculptor who did that horse, as soon as it was finished, the horse fell over and killed him.
Really?
Yes.
So even the horse stated itself.
Yeah. It's like, you've got to be fucking kidding me.
Yeah, the horse killed the sculptor.
Okay, hang on. I just want to go back a little bit because remember, I'm the one that isn't all that sold on the UFO thing. Okay, but here we are now. We're talking about the Denver airport and horses killing people and all that kind of fun stuff. And but in all realistic,
Rob condenses
goddamn
it to murderous horses. We just wrapped up in a tiny package. Murder horses are everywhere. There's a large concentration in Denver.
And God damn it, there's only 32% of chocolate ice cream in this Neapolitan.
So this is where the conspiracy broadens, because we're losing our entire third of our chocolate Neapolitan. You know what horse I think that was? I think that was a quarter horse in front of that fucking Denver airport. This is far-reaching, guys. It's far-reaching.
Sorry. But when I getting back to it, my point I guess I was trying to make was, why couldn't there be something under O'Hare? If there's quote-unquote something on, who knows what got done in building O'Hare? I mean, I've been there quite a few times, and I've seen what walks through there. You never know what walks around outside there.
Oh, yeah. And I mean, it would make sense. It makes sense to have something unseen in an area where you can quickly vacate, right? It does. I
like
mean,
Mark was saying, hey, look over here.
Yeah.
While this is going on over here.
Yeah.
From a security perspective, yeah, it's a place where more than likely, if there was something sort of, unseen, behind the scenes, unseen, hidden, an airport would serve something like that well. I agree with that, definitely.
But speaking of airports, coming back full circle back to the story, this is not the first report of UFOs hovering around an airport. There was one prior in 1978 at McKiernan Airport in Las Vegas, and then another one in 1997 over JFK in New York.
And that's interesting because when we think of UFOs hovering over places of ingress and egress, right? It's usually military. We think that it's usually, they're hovering over something because there's some kind of military application. But the fact that it would be, public transportation, that's weird. I mean, it's downright weird. The implications are far different, but far stranger.
But it goes back to hide in plain sight, like Mark was saying. Look at all the shit that's going on in Las Vegas. Who really cares about the airport? The airport is, you're either looking forward to get drunk when you get there, or drunk trying to get home, getting out.
Yeah, no, very true. And I mean, if there is
Speaking
going to be,
I was semi-drunk in Vegas on Friday night. Not even kidding.
Semi-drunk. Does that mean that you were 18 wheels of completely off your ass drunk? Is that what semi-drunk means?
No, I only had one Jack and Coke that was poured with a heavy hand at the Wynn Casino.
Okay. I'll let you slide on this one, Mark. It's fine.
Oh, but see, now that it was the soda that got you because you.
It was.
Well,
Is that caffeinated part of it?
Do you guys want to hear a story now about UFOs where intoxication plays a major part in it?
Is this about UFO Road?
Oh no. This is my actual story. I just didn't know if you were ready for the segue.
I was hoping we were going to revisit our.
I have two questions that I have to ask before we jump into the segue. Okay. One, were you wearing toe socks?
He always wears toe socks.
And sandals.
and two, did it have anything at all to do with peach schnapps?
Peppermint schnapps.
Okay.
Because the weather's a little bit colder. And that's
Right.
sort of my fall go-to. And yes, definitely toe socks with sandals on, because otherwise, what's the point?
To be specific.
I mean, you got to let people know that you're going big or you're not going home.
Right.
Toe socks and sandals. That's how it works. Toe shoes.
I was hoping we were going to relive some of our teenage debauchery years from UFO Road.
Oh, we totally can. Yeah, we totally can. I mean, because we will have our final segment when we'll open up calls. So we can finally do that in between calls if we get any callers tonight. So if you guys are ready for the segue, my story does involve a little bit of intoxication, not on my part, but on the part of the eyewitnesses. So, are either of you familiar with the Kelly-Hopkinsville encounter?
No.
So can't say that I am.
Now, this is an older one, and there's a reason why I chose it, because I get very interested in not just ufology, but I get very interested around like the personalities of ufology and how it gets translated and how it's sort of become this weird, it's subculture. Like I really get interested in that, the psychology of it. Even if
speaking of personalities in UFO, we need to get Bill Burns on this show at some point. We will get Bill
back. Yes, we'll get Bill. Oh, and by the way, in case anybody's interested, I've been talking with Herbie Brennan again, who was always a great guest on the show. Herbie is a great guy. And he is
still... Can we all wear aviators when Bill's on?
Of course.
We most certainly can. Yes.
Who was the angry guy who wrote the book? It was I Know Why the Aliens Don't Visit Us. And he enjoyed our show, but he's hated a lot of shows he had been on. You remember that guy?
That might be too far in the Wayback Machine for me.
Oh man, that guy was like super angry about a lot of things.
I mean, we did have some angry guests. Some that weren't even angry until after they were on the show for a little while.
Yeah, one that got angry before he even got on the show.
Oh yeah,
that's how we met our friend Rob.
Yeah, the genesis of our relationship with Rob.
Yeah.
So
R.I.P. Marvel.
Yeah. So the Kelly-Hopkinsville encounter is significant for me because it actually coined the phrase "little green men." So if anybody wants to know like where that phrase in ufology came from, it actually came from an encounter in 1955.
Were they Kelly green?
Yes. With a little bit of forest green, and all the trees were very happy. So,
were they DeForest Kelly greens?
Let's just shut this down now. Come on, where's the in live video button? Right over there. So I pulled.
We're laughing.
So I pulled the story from numerous sources. So I was not gonna rewrite it because why when somebody's done the legwork for me? So I'll just say that I'm paraphrasing, but I'm paraphrasing very closely to the original source material. So this was the evening of April 21st, and we need to remember that it's April 21st because a lot of the explanations that have been given to this encounter, unfortunately, do not take the time and the time of year into account. So we need to remember April 21st, 1955. So on the evening of April 21st, 1955, the Sutton family farm in Hopkinsville, Kentucky. So the reason this is called Hopkinsville, Kelly, is because the two towns are very close to each other, and this is Kentucky. So let's face it. They were hosting an evening like with family and friends, and there was this guy, Billy Ray Taylor, who's a family friend and a carnival employee. I see already this is interesting to me. He had stopped by for dinner that evening. You know, after finishing the meal, the carnival employee left the house to fetch water from a nearby well. And again, there's tons of accounts of this, tons of different accounts, but this is the one that I think includes the most information. This is the reason that we're sort of focusing on this. So the carnival left the house to fetch water from a nearby well. Now, he was shocked to see a strange saucer-like object land about 1 city block's length away from the house. So according to Taylor, the saucer apparently gave off a strange sort of like rainbow corona. And it had a strip of brighter light around the rim of it. So this is pretty specific, right? I mean, for an eyewitness account to be able to relate the colors, another rim of light, this is pretty specific. So, since, he worked for the carnival, and obviously he's a very brave man, he immediately ran the fuck back to the house, like we should all do. So
go back.
Now, what's interesting is that there are claims that only talk about Taylor seeing the saucer. And this is another point that we really have to focus on, because there are a lot of claims that says the only person that actually had any account of a saucer landing or being near the area was this guy Taylor. However, there was an actual account, and this is the main account. There was a police account. This is one of the reasons why this was so important piece of ufology, by the way, is because there is police record. So, in addition to Taylor, the carnival employee seeing the saucer, the family matriarch, Glennie Langford, also claimed to have seen the saucer from inside the house. So we've got Taylor outside trying to get water, and we've got the matriarch inside the household looking out and seeing the saucer.
Wondering where the hell the water is.
Huh?
Wondering where the hell the water is.
Right. And going, where the fuck is that fucking carny with our water? Small hands, smells like buttered popcorn.
And despair.
3 teeth.
Knows how to throw a dart. So according to report, upon seeing the object, she actually, it was so intense. Now remember, this guy saw it from like a city block away, right? He's seeing the corona. He's seeing the light around the rim of the ship. And it's so alarming to him, he runs back to the house. Now, it's so alarming to the matriarch that apparently she actually fell backwards. She fell backwards in shock and was exclaiming, oh my God, there's something out there. So Taylor tells the family what he sees and is reasonably frustrated when nobody takes him seriously. Except, of course, the family matriarch. Now, she was so shocked that when she fell backwards, she was actually taken to one of the back bedrooms in the house. So there's a little bit of distance between Taylor telling his story and the matriarch, Glennie, talking about what she had seen out the window. So there was a little bit of disconnect there. So, but not long after him telling the family he just saw, the dog starts to bark incessantly. Now, in an effort to sort of prove his truth, he convinces Elmer Lucky Sutton to accompany. If they would leave nicknames out of this, it would definitely work to the benefit of the story. So he convinces Elmer Lucky Sutton to accompany him outside. Now, they're both outside. Now, this is Taylor and Lucky. The two men notice an odd glow coming from the woods behind the farmhouse. So upon closer inspection and backlit by the glow, they then claim to see a strange creature walking at them with its hands raised, as one does in either a gesture of, don't shoot me or I come in peace or whatever, right? So, stunned, Lucky exclaims, probably with a colorful curse, being from Kentucky. And the two men haul ass back inside the house. So you're going to see.
So what you're saying is these guys are the bravest individuals that have ever walked the face of the earth.
Yes.
Jordan Barrel, you lunkhead.
Yeah, and in an effort of interstellar diplomacy, they get the fuck out of there. So they're saying that this thing was between 2 and 3 feet tall. It had a disproportionately large head and arms that stretched almost all the way to the ground. They said that its head was adorned with pointed ears and massive glowing eyes. On either side of its muscular torso, it's kind of a weird thing to remember, hung gangly arms with claws. I mean,
that alien
like he was
ripped,
like,
man.
all I know is we got the hell out of there. Ripped as shit, though, was the alien. I got to tell you that. I don't know where the fuck he'd been working out. But as soon as he came, I'm like,
not Jax, mind you, but ripped.
He's a gangly little fucker, man.
Was it a male? Was it a male or female? Well, it just kind of emanated masculinity.
I know in the city they call them pheromones. We got them out here in the country too, and it had a shit ton of them.
We have lived around those kinds of people way too long.
I mean, I had sort of a strut about it, and I was like, I ain't fucking with this dude. Went back inside the goddamn house. So on either side of its muscular torso hung gangly arms with had claws on its head. Its feet were not seen very clearly, but according to one sketch, it ended almost like, they call them suction cups, but almost like flat feet. So
like penile feet.
They were talking. By the way, they did not say that they were green. They actually talked about, again, this is one of those other ufological misnomers about little green men, and obviously this is the story where it started, but they actually do say, again, gray. Now, this is 55. So this is before we started to be inundated with reports of gray aliens. And this account isn't too far from the mark. Disproportionately large head, sort of a muscular torso, keep coming back to it, but disproportionately large head, large eyes, 3 feet tall, sort of disproportionately long arms. This is very classical gray alien stuff here, even the color being gray. So it says these strange creatures, although otherwise unclothed, appear to be wearing a strange material best compared to metal armor. Now, in 1955, I would say if you were to see something like a jumpsuit that was, maybe iridescent or had a metallic quality to it, that might be how you describe it, right? Because, I mean, you're not seeing jogging suits in 55 yet. So something that was maybe form-fitting, but like I said, metallic in nature, something that had a sheen to it, they might describe that as armor. So even from the first well-recorded close encounter, these things, they describe them as being ugly. To them, their appearance was ugly. So the two men see the creature advancing on them. They run back into the house and grab a .22. Because Kentucky. And a 20-gauge shotgun to defend the family. This thing has done nothing but just do this. Hey, buddy.
We come in peace.
We broke down. I just need to use your phone. Is that a gun? Yeah, that's a gun. That's a gun. So
I just need to phone home.
Right. If you have a speak and spell and an umbrella, or just a bunch of tinfoil from chewing gum. How many pieces of chewing gum do you guys have? Anything? Reese's Pieces. I'll take any. Not long after, one of the creatures appears in the doorway, and the men promptly fire on it. Right?
Of course.
Deciding to shoot first and ask questions later. So it disappears from view. Taylor goes outside to investigate further and apparently is attacked from above. According to the family, witnessing from inside, something claw-like reached from above and lashed onto the man's hair. So the family quickly grabs Taylor and pulls him back inside, right? because of all of the commodities in Kentucky, we can't let one fucking carny take one for the team. He's got to come back inside the house. Because who else is going to turn over those fucking ducks, right? But Taylor. So the siege for the next, and this is where it gets even crazier. For the next, we're not talking 10 minutes. We're not talking half an hour. For the next 4 hours, the group defends the home from apparently a small band of 10 to 15 of these creatures, where they would occasionally appear in the windows and the doorways. Now, what's interesting is that aside from them touching Taylor's hair, right? Nothing was extremely aggressive. They were appearing in the windows, they were appearing in the door, but they weren't doing anything, they weren't, going, or anything, or, they weren't jumping up and down or masturbating furiously or whatever the aggressive nature is in Kentucky. So all in all, they were just sort of being creepy.
Wait a minute. They weren't showing their perfectly white, perfectly formed teeth, reading and, having an IQ above 45.
Right, which is the scariest thing that can happen in Kentucky. So besides the hair grab, right? Nothing extremely aggressive, but like very curious. Again, peeking through the windows, peeking through the doors. Apparently, the two men wasted dozens of rounds of ammunition shooting at these creatures. But the creatures seem unaffected by gunfire. In fact, the two men said that they were sure they hit them on numerous occasions, but all that they heard was a metallic sound as if they had shot a metal bucket. So they're hitting them. And I mean, if you think about it, if they're appearing in the doorway and they're inside the house, this isn't shooting from across the field. It's not shooting from across a parking lot or a huge area. This is probably what we would consider about 15 to 20 feet. This is fairly close range.
Right, but they didn't get all the little red star on the paper to go away. So the aliens still lived. Exactly.
Right. Like it even says this furious game of whack-a-mole. No, it doesn't, but that would be hilarious. The group says that they hear scratching, from above, and they're pretty sure, that there were still a couple of them on the roof. Now, at one point, one of the creatures was spotted in a nearby maple tree, and upon shooting at the creature, they were astounded to witness that it did not fall out of the tree upon being hit, but it literally floated from the tree back into the forest. And apparently, although they had no problems with the gunfire, any bright lights that were extremely adverse to them. So once they feel as though there's some kind of respite from this, they decide to pile into their vehicles and they're going to go to the police station. So if the creatures were completely immune, I don't know what they thought they would have, what are the police going to do? Right? Right. It's like, listen, hey,
oh, yeah.
Your guns not doing a thing. However, these guys know their Miranda rights. And quite frankly, that's very official.
At least they would be easy to pick out of a lineup.
They really would. But because it's Kentucky,
it's the muscular torso.
They'd still pick the black guy. They would.
Wow.
They would. It's Kentucky.
Went there.
It's Kentucky. You've got Elmer and Lucky.
Good night, everyone.
And what was the other guy's name? Billy Ray? Billy
Ray. They could have a lineup that I swear to fucking God could have that little fucking alien from Communion, fucking Alf, E.T., and those goddamn robots from Batteries Not Included, and those fuckers would still pick the black dude. They would. Okay. Anyways, in total, the police decide to visit the property in order to resolve the issue.
Not all members of the show share the same.
Right.
I've been to Kentucky. Oh, they would.
The opinions of the hosts of the Parafactor are just their
I'm
opinions and
telling you
in no
right now,
way
they're gonna be sitting there
reflects the
munching on their
opinions
fucking pork
of the other
rinds, and they're
hosts.
gonna be laying it into the fucking black dude. So there were approximately 12 to 15 law enforcement officers, including 4 military police, that they brought with them to investigate the scene. Everyone gets back at around 11 p.m. Okay? Now, here's what we have to understand. And here is the point that I was trying to make earlier. When you start to hear the explanations for what people thought these things were, you have to understand, too, they got back to the house at 11. The siege itself lasted for 4 hours. Let's say there's only a 10-minute drive. So the incident itself, when they first started seeing these beings, was before 7 p.m. in April in Kentucky. That still gives us quite a bit of light. And here's where the explanations get a little haywire because of that fact. Now, they get there. We're talking the police, the MPs. What they don't find is they don't find evidence of a saucer. They only find where one of the creatures was supposedly shot that there was a strange liquid that had a very strange sheen to it on the ground. Now, officials also say, and this is another interesting point, officials say that there were no indicators that alcohol was involved. So they are noting when they get there, because of how outlandish the story is, they're taking particular concern with noting there was no alcohol present. It did not seem like anyone was intoxicated. So after a few hours, the law enforcement leave around 2 a.m. Around 3:30, the creatures return. And instead of another throwdown, the family gets the hell out. Now, here's some of the aspects of this that sit strangely with me, besides the fact that the whole goddamn thing is strange. This is one of the most significant and well-documented cases. The total number of family members, and this includes their friend, totaled in 5 adults and 7 children. So we've got 12 people concurrently seeing these events. 12 total eyewitnesses. Incident lasted more than 4 hours. They all reported them looking similar in large eyes, anywhere from 2 to 4 feet, color of their skin, and
muscular torso.
And muscular, well-defined, athletic torsos.
Sweaty.
Glistening. Glistening. I'm looking at the report right now. The report says glistening. We've got reports.
Splendid.
We've got reports that gunshots. Apparently, they also were very young. Nubile, gunshots made a metallic sound. People wanted to say that the adults had been intoxicated. So when people started debunking the story later on, they started talking about intoxicated adults, although the official report says that that was part of the initial investigation. No intoxication.
Now, I believe there was a video game that was made based on this called Redneck Rampage.
Strangely enough, this also served as the inspiration for the 1986 film Critters. Apparently, 2 comic books have been produced detailing the events, even one of them making one of these creatures a recurring character that can tell the future. So, the debunking says this. The debunking says they were intoxicated, which we do have a report that says that they were not, and there's no evidence of it. There was reports of a meteor shower that night.
That was the only shower that was going on in that neighborhood.
Oh, come on. And I can't tell the racist jokes? We know Kentuckians are racist, but they might have great hygiene, Mark.
Yeah, they really take care of those 3 teeth.
Now, and here's the big thing. The big thing is that it was determined that these were not aliens, but were indeed great horned owls.
Really?
Now, no, determined by debunkers, not by the family. The family didn't come back and go, "Oh wait, owls."
Now, I have an idea from a listener, a longtime listener, by the way, used to go by the name Evil. He is saying that maybe the goo that they found was baby oil to highlight their muscular torsos.
It could have been. I think it was a little more viscous. So I think we're going with more of a hard body bodybuilder kind of thing. So we're probably going straight to the petroleum jelly.
But all right, now in all seriousness on this one, because now you got me intrigued. Were there marks on the house? Were there like claw marks? Were there missing shingles? Was there anything that showed any damage to the structure?
There was significant damage from the shotgun blasts. Apparently the house was not in fantastic shape, anyways. So there was no determination of an assault on the house from the outside, but there was a ton of evidence of shots being fired from inside to out.
Nothing on the trees, no marks or anything on the trees, no, pushed over corn in the fields or anything like that.
Nothing is mentioned. The only thing that's mentioned as far as any trace evidence is the liquid. And of course that there were a lot of shells from the shotgun.
And I kind of buy into your theory that, 1955, any kind of, a metallic looking silk, like a silk jacket, would be considered metallic looking or, anything like that, so there is some kind of believability to the story, even though, you're looking at, hill people or whatever you want to call them. It's
hill people. I love that phrase. I honestly could not get enough of that. Like, I wish in my more snarkier youth, I would have called more people hill people.
But no, I think in your youth you already had a big enough problem with your mouth nearly getting you in trouble on more than a few occasions.
Oh, yeah. No, that is true. Even unintentionally sometimes.
Yes.
But so, as the one kind of outlier on this one, the one that's kind of on the believing, this is one that, the involved. It's April. Great horned owls. I don't know, maybe, but it doesn't make sense. Why would there be 15 of them, and why would they keep showing up in the windows of the house? It's just it doesn't add up.
Yeah, there's a lot. And strangely, the great horned owl theory has been widely accepted. So much, in fact, that in the 60s, psychology classes would reference the Kelly-Hopkinsville encounter as being a case of mass hysteria involving great horned owls. Now, this was, and again, here's another element of the story that we can't pass by, is that this was a family farm. More than one generation of people had lived on this farm. Now, if you see any pictures of great horned owls, they are literally the classical owl. When you think of owls, The great
Yeah.
horned owl literally is the classical visage of what you would expect from like a storybook owl. So these are people that knew the land and knew it well because generationally speaking, they had been there for a long time. In Kentucky, anyways, in a fairly rural area, you know most of the animals.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Even if those animals are prone sometimes to making strange noises or noises that maybe you don't necessarily know or are familiar with.
Or associated with sex.
Right, or associated with sex. I mean, and let's face it, somebody probably had to have sex with one of those owls at one point anyways.
Right.
So they knew them inside out.
Oh.
But I can't believe, even when we think of the derogatory, stereotypical hill person, somebody in Kentucky in the 50s, even when we think of them, what we don't expect from them is to be ignorant of their surroundings. We expect them to at least be wise on the land, the animals. Even in our most ignorant depiction of them, we don't necessarily think that these are people that don't know the animals that have been around them for generations. They might not be educated people, but
farmers know every rock on their property.
Yeah.
This is not, I know we've been joking a lot about it, and I've kind of, had some jokes about it too, but actually this is one of those ones where I don't buy the explanation of something that they wouldn't recognize.
Yeah.
These are people that, if anything, would have said, hey, there was a whole bunch of owls outside that really freaked us out.
Yeah. And that probably would have been the most concerning is if they had seen 12 to 15 owls together.
Right.
That probably would have been what would have been most concerning to them. Not the fact that not only would they misidentify them, but then they would misidentify them as something extraterrestrial. It's like not only are they saying we don't know what this is, but then they're immediately jumping to this being something from something off-world, something from outer space. I don't buy the explanation. Even if we're saying that it wasn't aliens, even if we're saying that it wasn't the creatures they say they were, I still don't buy the great horned owl explanation.
Right.
And plus, we've also got a report of someone seeing a saucer previous to this happening. 2 people seeing it being bright enough that when they saw it, they were both extremely shocked. I don't know. This seems to be one of the explanations, and this is something in ufology that I've always found particularly annoying, is that sometimes the explanations are more outlandish than the idea that these people encountered something bizarre.
Yeah, the weather balloon.
Right.
Now, what I think probably would have been a better explanation to this, and what I think it may have been, was another circus coming in trying to start a turf war.
And they knew the carny was there.
Yes.
Yeah, and they were like, tonight we will not be thrown. We will be the ones doing the throwing. And then they collectively get
it's
together
Ringling Brothers versus Barnum and Bailey.
And they head out. Yeah, it's
Ringling Brothers versus Barnum and Bailey. Just full out turf war between the 2 circuses.
And I know that it's ridiculous, but I could even believe that above the great horned owl thing.
Right?
That's what gets me, is the explanation seems hyper convenient. And this idea of,
it seems like a reach.
Yeah,
I mean, I grew up in Northwest Jersey, kind of wooded areas. I've been a hunter all my life. I've seen owls in the woods. I've never seen more than an owl. I've never seen 2 of them together.
No.
I've never seen 12 to 15. It just doesn't make sense. It's like whatever it was, they were just coming up with anything to explain it away.
It's just like that weather phenomenon back in Chicago in 2006, right?
Yeah. It was, swamp gas refracting off of Mercury that,
hitting a weather balloon.
Right.
And this is, the fact that we take the explanations and we swallow them so readily. It's difficult because, we want to put the blame on the people that are offering up these ridiculous explanations. But there's some blame put back on us, for not investigating further, for accepting something like that so easily. So it's difficult not to adequately, for me anyways, reappropriate that blame. It's not just the people who offered the explanations. It's the people then who looked at all the evidence and said, sure.
That's what it was.
And I think it's equally insulting, too. You've got 12 people. Imagine 12 people. This isn't just like you and a buddy. This is 12 people. 5 adults, 7 children, all saying, no, this is what we saw.
And no alcohol involved.
And a guy coming back and going, thank you so much for your testimony, owls.
Right. We have contacted Jack Hanna on the set of the Tonight Show, and he and Johnny Carson have confirmed owls.
Yeah, this is most certainly owls. So what ended up happening is that, of course, the press took the story and ran it. Now, they misinterpreted the gray, called them green, and the story started to run with the headline of Little Green Men, which then ended up coining the phrase and spreading. So the most popular origin of Little Green Men associated with ufology is the Kelly-Hopkinsville encounter from 1955. But it's interesting to me, again, because the duration of the encounter, 4 hours. I mean, that's crazy.
Normally, you have to call a doctor after 4 hours.
Exactly. I mean, at least the military police were brought in.
Right.
Back to thinking a baton or two. But
I think an even more believable explanation than owls would be hell horses.
Well, there's your glowing eyes right there.
Yeah.
A little bit of hellfire.
It's Lucifer.
In each one.
Lucifer and his friends.
Before you go out. But yeah, it's been a story that, for me, first of all, is sort of a very classic 1950s alien encounter story. On top of that, it's one that is firmly rooted in sort of the origins of classical ufology. And then the more you dig into it, the more preposterous the explanations become.
But, okay, now let's go back to the one that Mark was, that Mark brought up in those 2006 with the perfectly, circular hole in the clouds, 8,000. And what did they say caused that? What was the reason for that?
It's a weather phenomenon.
A weather phenomenon. And people bought it.
Yeah.
And it goes back to, do you trust your government? I mean, are we, I know, although I'm not crazy on the, the whole UFO thing, I do have a little bit of, like, that I don't trust certain things. As a paranormal investigator, I get sick and tired of people saying, it was probably just a car coming down the street and it was headlights. That's what it was. It was headlights.